everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to share with you some of the books that I have had on these shelves and not read for years. They are the oldest books that I have on my TBR shelf. I have a dedicated TBR shelf right down here. And these books that I'm going to show you today have been on there for many years, and I thought I would make this video because then maybe you guys could tell me if they're worth reading or not, if you have already read them, or if I should just give them away to someone else who might enjoy them more than me. Let's start off with some of the contemporary that I have. I used to love contemporary a few years ago, but I've kind of grown out of it a little bit. Well, I wouldn't say I've grown out of it. I've just kind of lost interest in it a little bit and got more into fantasy, and especially high fantasy, so I'm not reading that much contemporary at the moment, and that's kind of why I haven't been picking these books up. First book is How We Met by Katie Reagan, I think is how you're supposed to pronounce that. This I actually picked up in, I think, 2014 when I lived in the UK. There was a 3 for 2 sale thing at a bookshop, and so I picked it up, and I think it's just like a one-day story where there's this girl who dies, and all of the people who knew her come together and like share how they met this person. And it sounds like an interesting story. I've just not had a desire to pick it up pretty much ever, I think, because it was one of those like, I might read that, and so I put it into my 3 for 2 sale. But yeah, maybe at some point I'll read this. As I said, it does sound pretty interesting, but the appeal has never really been there, so I don't know why I still own this book. The next one I have is The Longest Ride by Nicholas Sparks. I got this for Christmas while I used to live in the UK, so that would be Christmas of 2014. You will notice a pattern here. There are a lot of books from around that time. I don't even know what this book is about, to be very honest with you. I know it's by the same author as The Notebook. I have seen that movie. I haven't read the book. And I haven't felt like a romance story for ages, which is probably why I haven't picked this book up. But still, like, I got it in 2014, so if I was gonna read it, I probably would have read it by now. So this might be going to some kind of charity shop when I move out of this flat. I am gonna do a proper look into all of the books I have when I move out of this flat, because I have over 300 books and all of my books are going to have to go into storage after summer, and putting 300 books in storage is a little bit ridiculous. Then I have Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. This is even older than the other books. It says soon to be a major movie on the cover, actually soon to be a major film on the cover, and I definitely bought this before I went to the UK because I believe, I was about to say I remember, but I believe this was one of the few books that I brought with me to the UK when I moved there. So I must have had this in like 2013. Now, I saw the trailer for the movie and it was just completely different to what I thought it was gonna be. For some reason I thought this was like a contemporary story, but the movie looked more like sci-fi. So clearly I haven't really even read what this book is about, which is really bad. David Mitchell erases the boundaries of time, genre, and language to offer an enthralling vision of humanity's will to power and where it will lead us. I mean, it sounds really interesting. I just thought it was contemporary until very recently. Maybe some of you guys know what genre this kind of falls into. Clearly it doesn't, since it says on the back that it doesn't really. But yeah, this has kind of re-sparked an interest in this book for me, seeing the trailer for the movie, or is it a TV show that is being made into recently? I can't remember. I saw a trailer of this story recently. I can't remember in what setting. So yeah, maybe I will pick this book up now that it's kind of been re-sparked in my brain a little bit. Then the final book on my contemporary pile is An Offer You Can't Refuse by Jill Mansell. I bought this years ago, maybe even like as early as 2012, because it was mentioned on Carrie Hope Fletcher's channel as one of her favourite books at the time, and as a big Carrie Hope Fletcher fan at the time and also now, I picked it up and I never read it. So maybe this just kind of shows you that I think I'll like contemporary, and usually I enjoy it, they're fine, but I never have like a huge will to pick it up, I guess. But this does sound kind of interesting. It's about a girl who gets offered £10,000 from her boyfriend's mum to break up with her boyfriend, and I think she does that, and then like years later they meet again and stuff happens, which sounds pretty interesting. So this is another one of those books that whenever I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I do want to read that, but I still just haven't. Moving on to some fantasy that I have Aragon by Christopher Paolini, something like that. I bought this as one of the first books I bought when I got into BookTube, I feel. I mean, I'd heard about it before then, but I didn't know like if it was any good or not. And the channels that I were following at the time were really into this book, but then later I've heard more like mixed reviews, and now I don't even know if I'm gonna like it. It does have a very, very pretty dragon on the cover, but I don't know if I'm actually gonna like this series. So if you're a fantasy fan, if you like Brandon Sanderson like I do, please let me know if this is something that like people who like Brandon Sanderson might like, because I read fantasy for like world building and character development and that sort of thing, and I'm not sure how much of that there is in this series. I don't really ever hear anyone explain what this series is, like what is attractive about this series. I just hear that it's good, or hear that it's bad in some cases. So yeah, please let me know if you've read this, if it's worth the read. Then I have The Ambassador's Mission by Trudy Canavan, something like that. This was actually a gift from someone I knew in the UK, which is lovely. They have already read the book, which is why it looks a little bit battered, especially on the front. But they gave it to me as like, this is one of my favourite fantasy series, please read it. And at the time I wasn't as into high fantasy as I am now, so it's just kind of stood on my shelf. But now that I'm really into Brandon Sanderson, I am super interested in seeing what this series has to offer. The only problem is that I have so many Brandon Sanderson books that I want to read, so I read them instead of picking up this. But once I have kind of gotten through my collection of Brandon Sanderson, I'm definitely thinking about picking this up. Actually, I am very close to finishing my collection of Brandon Sanderson. I have 4 books by Brandon Sanderson that I haven't read yet, and that is Oathbringer, Volume 1 and 2, Calamity, and The Rhythmatist. Rhythmatist. Hard thing to say. But yeah, those are going to be the last few books of Brandon Sanderson that I will be reading in a while, and then this is going to be a great thing to pick up, hopefully. I hope I'm going to like it. I mean, it would be kind of bad if I didn't, since it's one of my friends' favourite series. And finally, on the fantasy pile, I have the Game of Thrones series. Now, I have no idea, these are not sat in the right order at the moment, but I have read the first two, these two, but I don't like splitting series, which is, oh god, which is why these two are still kind of in my TBR shelf. But yeah, I haven't read the last 3 books in the series. That's what these look like, if you have forgotten. I am a big fan of the show, was a big fan of the show, not so much anymore. But that just makes me want to read the books even more, because since the series kind of has fallen off a little bit for me, that means that the books will continue to be good, hopefully. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely keep reading these. They're just so big and kind of terrifying, and especially the first couple. I've watched the show like 3 times over, the first few seasons, so the first couple of books feel so familiar to me, that they're kind of not boring exactly, but just like, since I know what happens, it's not as exciting as if I would have read them before I saw the show, which I think is why I'm putting off reading these 3, because I've seen the show. But yeah, I'm definitely going to pick these up at some point, who knows when. Usually I get through like one of these books every summer, has become tradition now, so maybe I'll read one this summer. Finally, my last little pile is of a couple of classics. First one I have is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is a part of the first ever like book unboxing or book haul that I did ever on this channel, which must have been like 2013. Did I start my channel in 2013? 2013 or 2014? I think 2013. I can't quite remember. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I had gotten this from the book depository. I was super excited because it is a really, really pretty book. Always will be. And then I just never read it. I read To Kill a Mockingbird, which I got in the same parcel, but just never picked this up. And I don't know, I feel like I probably bought this more because it was pretty than because I wanted to read it, which is a theme in my early book buying habits. But I'm not going to give it away because it's really pretty. So we'll see. Maybe I'll force myself to read this at some point. I don't even know if I'm going to like it. Like, I read Jane Eyre, did kind of enjoy that. Read To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of older books, even if they're supposed to be really good. I just can't really get into them. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to read this, but we'll see. And then finally, I have The Beast, that everyone who knows me will know that I've wanted to read for ages, but that I am terrified of, and that is Les Mis by Victor Hugo. This book is so big and it's so scary to even look at. I love the musical, and I would love to read this book properly and kind of like get a better insight into these characters that I have seen on stage like 4 or 5 times at this point. And yeah, I would just really like to read this book at some point. It never seems to really happen. I feel like this is the sort of book that I'm going to procrastinate reading for another 20 years, and then I'm going to be like, okay, maybe I should actually read that book. This cover is also super pretty, so I'm not going to give it away, but maybe at some point I'll read it. Who knows? Those were some of the oldest books on my TBR shelf. I do have a lot of other books that I haven't read that I don't know if I'll ever read, so I'll probably make a video when I start going through my bookshelf to decide which books I'm going to give away and which books I'm going to keep, but that will be closer to the summer. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!